Hello, everyone, and welcome to Wowhead Weekly number 296. It's been a short little break as we've been watching the race to the world first, not the world to the race first, the race to the world first, and it's finally come to an end. So that's something that we definitely want to talk about today, as well as a surprisingly fast maintenance, which brought some more story updates on the Sylvanas story. So, let's go. Let's get into all those things after we've introduced ourselves. My name is Annie, or also known as Annie Fuchsia, and I'm a full time streamer on Twitch. My co host is the lovely Perculia.
I run Wowhead. We've had a busy past week with the 925 PTR and then the Sylvanas epilogue today, so thanks for all your support. And I oversee a lot of features and projects on the site, so it's nice to do the show and be in front of the camera once a week. As Annie mentioned, we are discussing Race to World First since that wrapped up. We are also discussing patch 925 because that appeared suddenly mid last week. And we're also discussing the Sylvanas epilogue, which we didn't expect would be live because maintenance was meant to go on a while, but it came up super early. Um,
Which is
so
lucky
we
for
will
us.
be, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I also received an advance copy of the book, which also released today. But in the interest of time, and so more people can follow along with the discussion, we're gonna do a deep dive on that next week, just so more people can understand what we're talking about. Maybe you'll have already finished it by then.
Mm-hmm.
We'll mention a few things as it pertains to the epilogue.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but yeah,
Full discussion for next week. So today we can focus on what we have seen in the epilogue cutscene and also some of the dialogue updates that are in the game as well. Well, yeah, exactly,
yeah.
in the game as well. Um, and yeah, we have a bunch to talk about to do with the race as well and the PTR. So it's still going to be a pretty informative show today. Quite
Yeah.
a lot of things to discuss. So I think leaving the book for next week is for the best for everyone.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So why don't we just dive right in to
Mm-hmm.
the Sylvanas epilogue? Why don't we highlight why don't we just go over the quest briefly and then we can highlight the cinematics? So
Mm-hmm.
um, the quest is the epilogue chapter for Zereth Mortis and also Shadowlands, and basically, the crown of wills is delivered to the arbiter. The jailer is defeated, and we have one last task, which is to judge Sylvanas Windrunner. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and we go to Oribos, and she basically has a walk of shame where a lot of souls that she's wronged in her past are
Yeah.
like yelling at her. It's like very Game of Thrones vibes. Um, which is interesting because it's not just the Shadowlands people talking about how she's like doomed their realm, but it's also a night elf soul and an orc soul. I thought that was interesting how they didn't include a Forsaken. Actually, I was like, that's interesting how they chose orcs.
Mm.
Um,
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
and then in the center of Oribos, she is undergoing her judgment, and a lot of characters from Azeroth that have not been in Shadowlands are present to see her judged, including her two sisters and Gen Greymane. A lot of Alliance and Horde leaders are present, and then just characters from all the covenants that are upset how she was complicit in the um, directing anima and souls to the
Yeah.
maw, made the jailer stronger, kind of put their realms in chaos. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and then we have these two cinematics, one in which she is judged in front of everyone, and then a second one where we hear her actual fate. So do you want to play like one and discuss it or play both? Because I think they kind of go hand in hand.
They do kind of go hand in hand. We could almost just play them both one after the
Yeah,
other. Um, I'm not sure. I mean, maybe we watch the first one and discuss a little bit the people present.
yeah, I think we can do that. and then we can discuss the second one. And then after we discuss the second one, we can discuss, like, did this make sense for her? And then there's, like, a lot of little interesting follow-up dialogues, both stay a while and listen, and also gossip options where Thrall's like, I'm happy I met my mom, stuff like that, that we
Yeah.
can discuss. So yeah, why don't we just play the first one and then see if we have any thoughts, and then do the second one.
Sounds good. Let's jump into it.
Sylvanas Wingram, the time for your judgment is at hand. There can be no true justice without compassion. And I can see your deeds bear the mark of the jailer's influence. An influence we failed to contain.
The jailer did not control me. My actions were mine alone, and I accept their consequences.
Then, you know in your heart to whom you must answer.
I submit to the judgment of Tyrande Whisperer.
Entrusting justice to your most fervent adversary. Are there any gathered here who object to this fate? So be it.
What game do you play now, Banshee? The Sylvanas I hunted would never submit to the blade of her enemy.
Death would be a merciful end, Tyrande. And I do not expect your mercy.
Your newfound remorse might be genuine, but it can never erase all you have done. There will be no peace for you, Windrunner, until there is peace for the souls of your victims. The prisoner is in my charge now. Bring her!
All right, so that was part one. Part
Yeah,
one, lots of
so-
emotions, lots of characters.
Yeah, so one thing I thought was interesting was that when Pelagos was first the Arbiter, he was not wearing the Crown of Wills, and people were wondering if that was
Big
like
discussion topic.
made
Yep.
up or just like an unused asset. And now he is wearing the Crown of Wills moving forward. So that was just an interesting detail.
Yeah, I remember that
Again,
being a
I
bit of a
thought-
topic because, like you said, there
Yeah.
were some pictures of him from PTR or from data mining, maybe it was,
Yeah.
where he was wearing it, but then when we saw the model in game, he wasn't, and people started wondering why, what happened, and well, now we see the model clearly wearing the helm, so that's interesting.
Yeah, I guess he just needed time to, settle into his duties and put the hat on.
Yeah.
He does seem to be more compassionate than the past Arbiter. Like, he still is reflecting his old ideals of, there can be no true justice without compassion. So, which is interesting because, Sylvanas thought that because she was, turned into undead, that, her soul was beyond redemption, and that's why she had one of the reasons why the jailer was appealing to her, she thought that she just was sent to the maw no matter what.
Yeah.
I did think it was interesting how he was trying to be nice and say that, she was controlled by the jailer. And
Yeah, then
because-
she corrects him.
Yeah, and it's interesting for two reasons because, Pelagos in his past life was a Kyrian, and he would have observed, firsthand how, Devos in the Afterlife cinematic tried to warn the Kyrians, and they brushed that whole thing off. So it's interesting how he's, referencing that the Shadowlands was like too complacent and didn't really take the jailer threat seriously at first.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, even Sylvanas being like, no, like, I was still in control, like, I should be responsible for my actions. I thought that was interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Because, a lot of people were concerned that it was going to be a very simplistic story where Sylvanas would just, be like, oh, like, I was mind controlled by the jailer, like, everything I did when I worked with him, like, that was evil, but that's not me, and this is a more nuanced take, so, that was good. So, yeah, I mean, this sort of ends on a cliffhanger where Tyrande is the one that will deliver judgment for Sylvanas.
Mm-hmm.
The one thing I would...
She calls her prisoner, right?
Yeah. So,
that was
Pelagos is not coming up with the realm she needs to go to. It is Tyrande's call.
Mm-hmm.
One thing I would have liked to have seen a little more in this cinematic, though, and in the quest building up to it, is the Forsaken influence. We see close-ups of Sylvanas looking at Tyrande's angry face and Chandris, and then we see a close-up of Jaina, Anduin, and Thrall, also looking a bit angry. And then in the Walk of Shame, we have the Covenant souls and the Night Elf and Orc soul feeling betrayed, but we don't really have, like, a Forsaken, like, representation or close-up as to how they're feeling. And you can imagine that they would feel kind of betrayed as well if their, iconic leader is admitting that she did some, bad things. And if the Orc is saying he feels betrayed, then wouldn't the Forsaken, like, be like...
Yeah, absolutely.
So
because they were also split in two. Like, there were some people who were following and, being on her side of everything, and then there were some people who started going against her. So even the Forsaken themselves were a bit split up. And we didn't really see any comments from them as a race. So
there is a little follow-up with them, because a lot of characters have dialogue at the end. But
in the cutscene
you'd
itself.
think that there would be, like, I don't know, like a zoom in on a sad Forsaken's face as part of the judgment, not just, Thrall and Jaina. But overall, though, I do think that you can see how the tech used for these cinematics is getting better over time. Like,
because it's a cutscene, right? I mean, like, in-game used assets. So for in-game assets, that was pretty good.
Yeah, like, we saw with the Clea and Pelagos hug, that seemed really realistic and emotional. Last, like, 2 weeks ago, and now with this, like, seeing all the very subtle expressions of sort of, like, regret, but also anger on a lot of these characters' faces, it seemed very well done.
I have a screenshot that looks kind of funny. So this is Jaina and Anduin, and the angry Jaina face is very angry, like very angry. You see it from the eyes, eyebrows, and mouth. And Anduin has a very interesting expression himself. It's like he's maybe sad or something.
Yeah, I remember during the PTR there was like a sad Anduin emote, and I think it's used here. And it's interesting because with the different expressions, you can see how Jaina is more like really angry at Sylvanas for, what she did to Derek, and like she won't trust Sylvanas, and she's protective of Anduin. While Anduin is like, wow, you did horrible things, but I know firsthand that the jailer is, was like very manipulative. So I think that the cinematics and the animations have gotten to a place where you can see nuances. Not that every character has the same like angry scowl. There's different emotions being conveyed. So why don't we watch the second one, and then we can discuss if this seemed to be a good satisfying ending for
Judgment.
Sylvanas.
Yep.
Yeah.
I think that sounds like a good idea. Let's hop into part number 2.
Below lies the law, an unjust fate to which you doomed so many. And it will be there that your penance begins. Every soul lost in its depths, betrayed or condemned, you shall find and send forth to the Arbiter, to be judged with the compassion all souls deserve. You will toil there, under Dorotha's watchful eye, scouring every darkened reach, until the final soul is free, and you are all that remains. This is how you shall bring renewal to your victims and my people.
However long it takes, it shall be done.
Undo Falador, old friend. Watch her well.
Okay, that was part 2, The Judgment, done by Tyrande.
So yeah, Sylvanas is now trying to rescue all the souls that have been sent to the Maw, not just the victims, the Night Elves of Teldrassil, but also for just basically everyone
Every single soul,
sent there that as an accident, and Pelagos is going to judge them compassionately instead of, you know, the jailer arbitrarily sending people there for his gains, whether they deserve to be there or not.
And I mean, we have some experience ourselves saving those souls with our weekly quests.
Yeah. Sylvanas will be doing lots of Maw dailies, and Tyrande, she's sending her owl off to just watch Sylvanas forever, which, you know, it's like, oh, Tyrande keeps losing her faithful companions, but it is kind of funny because if you remember the patch 8.1 cinematic, how the owl is like staring at Nathanos and the like the other horde in the like battle for Darkshore clips. It's interesting how the owl is now going to be watching Sylvanas.
Oh. Yeah, that's a harsh punishment on her poor owl.
Yeah.
But I guess she needs, you know, her most trusted friend to be doing this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, in the first cinematic, Tyrande seemed suspicious that Sylvanas was playing a game. And, you know, she even is like, your newfound remorse might be genuine. It's not, oh, you've changed. Like, she's not totally sure if Sylvanas has changed. So
you're
you know,
lagging quite a bit.
Oh, dear.
Yeah.
Huh. Oh, dear.
What server are we on currently?
We're on Central.
You don't have anything on in the background that's using up the internet?
No, I put my laptop is turned off. My phone is on airplane mode.
Do you want to try an East server maybe? Just to make sure.
Sure.
Let's try an East server real quick.
Testing?
Okay, it seems good now. It might go bad again, but hopefully it stays this way. So now it seems crisp and clear. Yeah.
Yeah.
So you can, yeah, back to the topic.
Yeah, so where were we?
We were talking about the owl.
Yeah, so she didn't totally trust that Sylvanas had a change of heart, so it makes sense why the owl has to watch over everything.
Yeah, she feels. Oh yeah,
Um,
because she specified that she feels that Sylvanas is playing some kind of new game now,
yeah.
potentially, and she wants to know what that new game is, and I guess it's strengthened by the fact that Pelagos was trying to uh, excuse her actions, where she
Yeah.
kind of took it onto herself, which also puts away all people's worries about Sylvanas is getting a full redemption and it is now
Mm.
good. Sylvanas did say herself, like, no, I was not in control. They were my decisions, or something similar along those lines. So it probably makes Tyrande wonder, okay, so if they are your actions and your decisions, then why sudden remorse? What is the game here? What are you playing? And yeah, it seemed like this is the first step to some degree, because Tyrande did say for now, or like to start your what did she call it? She didn't call it redemption, but to start
He said
your
your penance begins.
penance. That's it. Yeah.
Yeah.
She specified that it's the start of it. So Sylvanas will have to do, many dailies and many weeklies for some time until there's literally no souls left. And at that point, there might be some further discussion on something for the judgment.
Yeah, and it definitely seems like it will be a monumental task because it's not just finding the recent night elves; it's all of the souls that are in the maw. Like
Yeah.
she's not just undoing her legacy; she is undoing the jailer's legacy as well. Um, so the cinematic ends where Sylvanas jumps down into the maw, um, and that's where we leave her. And
Yeah.
then in her wake, we have a lot of characters reacting, which we will get into. Um, but one I did want to highlight was that Tyrande has a little dialogue after, um, where it seems like she's still she said two things. One thing she said is the Banshee's penance will save countless lost souls, a fate that would not come to pass had I slain her in Ardenweald. Perhaps this is why Mother Moon stayed my hand. The Horde inflicted a grievous wound upon my people. You may never earn my trust, but you have my thanks for setting things right. So that to me implies she's made a little bit of peace with how things turned out, and it does sort of show some maturity on Turan's part. That sounds weird to say because she's thousands of years old, but it does show
Yeah.
that she's less consumed by vengeance. If her
Exactly. Yeah.
fate was to free everyone from the maw, not just the night elves. But then if you talk to her at a different point a little earlier, it's whatever judgment the arbiter hands down can never balance the scales. Nothing he can do or say will ever be enough. So I think that's interesting how at first she was awaiting the trial. She didn't, she was like very on the fence how this was going to go. And then when she was told that she would be in charge, then I think that was the most satisfying outcome. And she
Yeah.
probably felt validated too that Pelagos wasn't some random character deciding upon things, but instead like acknowledged
It was
her pain and
recognized.
trauma.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Acknowledged. Exactly. I think that was a really nice way to put it as well. We've been
Yeah.
talking about Tyrande getting her word in for
Mm.
I don't know how long it's been now. I think at this point it's been years, and so it's nice to finally see this. It's taken a long time, but we're finally here to this moment where Tyrande can decide what the punishment is going to be, regardless of whether it was 100% Sylvanas's decisions or not, like how much influence there was or not, doesn't matter. She is accepting the consequences, and Tyrande is able to set them. So I think that's really good.
Yeah. So Yeah, and Chandris also has a little bit of dialogue where she's like, if she can spare souls from the torments of the maw, then perhaps her penance will prove more valuable than her execution. So it's like, and while also being like, many called for her head, some still do, and I doubt that anything less will satisfy them. But, it is a sense that maybe if Sylvanas stays alive and is helping the souls, that will, help the Night Elves rebuild and have peace for their loved ones more than, just killing Sylvanas.
Yeah.
So, yeah. So,
oh yeah,
what do you think of this ending for her? Because, all these characters in game are reacting, and some are like, yeah, and others are like, I'm still angry, or, yeah, so it's a very, I mean, I don't, we got to a point that I don't like, and I think this was the best way to wrap it up. That's kind of my take on it.
Yeah.
Like, I wish we didn't have the split soul, decided she hated Forsaken and aligned with the jailer, but now that we're at this very convoluted point, I think that this was a fair ending.
I think, I think reaching at this point, this was probably the best thing that could have been done. Letting Tyrande pick the judgment, and her being a potential eternal or at least long time prisoner. We don't know what's gonna happen later. It's the best solution for what we have now, but it does still make you wonder a little bit, what was the point of the split souls? What was the point of many of the things that happened up to this point? But it is still a very nice wrapping of it, I think, for Tyrande's character also to feel some kind of ending to it all, and for Sylvanas to finally have some kind of punishment and be used for something which is actually useful. Helping all those lost souls, I think, will be really nice to get them back to the correct places. And I think overall it's probably the best thing that could have happened. The only thing that I could have maybe wanted to see in the cutscenes themselves would be maybe a bit more emphasis on the sisters commenting or something, maybe.
Yeah, the sisters and the Forsaken.
Yeah.
Like, when you click on them, they have a little bit of dialogue talking about how they wanted to see, like, Sylvanas for themselves, and how Varisa's like, I don't want to give up hope, I think that, I don't think that she's gone forever. But yeah, it would have been nice if they actually had, like, a proper cinematic, because we never actually seen them, all standing together with, animations and cinematics in game. So that would have been cool. But yeah,
my cat made it home.
Oh, she did! Oh, that's awesome! Yay! Aw, I'm so happy she's back.
Yeah, I knew that it would happen around these. Okay, she's got a lot of stuff on her. I need to wash her or something. But for now, I'm just gonna let her be. This happened last time too. She came home really, really late. I don't know if it's... Do cats know that it's nighttime, or is it just because there's less cars, less people, less random barking dogs? I don't know.
Their eyes are good when it's evening, so it's like they like going out and exploring at night.
Oh,
I'm so happy she's back.
I knew this would happen, so that's why I told my sister. I was like, she's gonna come now, so please, let the door be open and just wait. Oh my god. Because during the day as well, we had the door open for periods of time when it was safe for my other cat to not randomly escape.
Right.
But I wasn't expecting it to work until now, nighttime. But yeah, sorry about that.
I'm
random.
so happy she's back. That's so nice.
I'm happy too.
That's such a relief.
Whew, okay, she's back in safety. Okay.
Yeah. If only they could talk. If only you could be like, where did you go? And
yeah.
Yeah,
but
so
she looks okay at least. There's no random injuries or anything, so that's nice.
Good.
Yeah, I was a little bit worried about injuries, because you never know. But it seems like she's probably just been hiding somewhere for 12 hours plus. I don't know how long it's been. But yes, sorry about that distraction. We should get back to the discussion.
No, definitely take your time. That's very important.
Well, she's okay now, so she's safe now. So It's
So
all good.
she wanted to know. She wanted to weigh in on the fate of Sylvanas.
Yeah, that's it. That's it. She was like, the cutscenes were okay, but could have used a few more feral druids in there, just to represent everyone.
Yeah, she's
that's
like, "Where's
her vote.
Malfurion?" Like,
Where?
yeah,
That's actually true. We haven't seen Malfurion for so long, but I guess it doesn't
yeah,
maybe directly impact him. So cats
yeah,
have good points to make for sure.
yeah.
Okay, but yeah, where
So
were we?
we were talking about like how satisfying was it, and I think that a similar parallel would be the ending of Illidan, and I think that this
Mm-hmm.
quest by itself is better in that we actually get to see Illidan interacting with like a lot more we see Sylvanas interacting with a lot of characters.
Yeah.
We have, if you click on everyone in the crowd, they all say different things
Yeah.
about Sylvanas.
Mm-hmm.
And Illidan people were just like, how did he never see Tyrande? Why was there just like a little dialogue after, why didn't Illidan reconnect with this person? Like there was just like a lot of loose threads. So I think that this sort of quest was really good. My issue is
Bringing
that
more
we
point of
needed
views.
more of these.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, even we're not going to talk about the book a ton, but the book does go over why she worked with the jailer, and it's like we needed like that sort of expansive quest line at the start to make Sylvanas be more believable, and we needed more of these
Just
quests
more
where
meat in all these bones. Mm-hmm.
yeah, like they're just we needed all these reactions to things at more points, or like we mentioned with the Anduin cinematic, it's like, is Anduin okay? Why
Yeah.
is are people gonna react to Anduin? Is he back? Like it's just I think you just need more character building moments like this. And
Yeah, I
I think
completely
this
agree with
works
that.
well.
And it's also
Yeah.
quite easy, as you said. If because I haven't done this part in game yet, but
Yeah.
so it's when you interact with the characters right in that scene area, and
Yeah.
they comment things. Yeah, that's really good.
Yeah.
I think we could definitely have more of those kind of comments. Fill up a lot of other kind of stories that may have a few holes here and there, because it's nice to know what each character says.
Yeah, like, Jaina has a blurb talking about hatred, but it's like, okay, well, where's Jaina's blurb about, Anduin? Or, Bane finally says something, and it's like, okay, that's great, but where were you for the entire expansion?
Yeah.
Or it's like, that's nice, Ilaria and Varisa show up, but why didn't they say anything throughout Shadowlands? Like, it's just, I think Epilogue itself is tying up things well, but we should have had more things like this earlier in Shadowlands. More characters reacting to things.
Yeah, I agree.
And yeah,
did we have a Bolvar reaction?
Go ahead. Which reaction?
Did we have a Bolvar reaction?
Yeah, so there's actually a Bolvar reaction, and then there's a little dialogue we'll get to in a few minutes. But Bolvar doesn't care about Sylvanas. He's just like, the jailer is evil. He was trying to twist me. I spent all my energy trying to resist him. Did I do something bad in Icecrown I didn't realize that I was doing because of the jailer? Which is interesting because in Legion there was definitely some questionable things going on with the Ruby Dragonflight about like hating all the red dragons and trying to like kill all of them with the Death Knight questline. So this could be a way to explain some of Bolvar's more angry moments.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's a lot of reactions. Thrall is even like, this is not the path I would have chosen, but I'm glad I met my mom.
Oh.
And
that's a
Bane
nice
is like,
one.
Sylvanas faces justice for all that she's done. She treated me really poorly in BFA, but hey, I wasn't treated as badly as Anduin. What's interesting with the little follow-ups is how Greymane says something a little different for the Alliance and Horde. And Sylvanas loyalists even get, a different message as well. And, it's just nice how there's
Mm.
little touches here
Mm-hmm.
and there.
Yeah, I see it
Um,
now. There's like a Sylvanas message for
yeah,
rebellers and then a Sylvanas message for loyalists.
yeah.
Cool.
The Anduin one is interesting because he's basically like, for the part you played in setting me free, I'll always be grateful, but I cannot pretend that I can simply go back to being the person I was. I need time. And with that look of regret on his face, you almost get a sense if he's like, hey, I did terrible things, like, should I be judged as well?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. I
um,
think that's definitely it. Like, yeah,
yeah.
Sylvanas did that. Yeah, she deserves this judgment. Like maybe I deserve some punishment too. Maybe I wasn't 100% either. Because he was highly influenced, but
Mm.
he still remembers everything. So, or I think he does, right? So he
Yeah.
probably still feels guilt for that, and wonders
But
if he
yeah, I
should
do
maybe
think
be
he's being a
punished.
little harsh on himself. So I think that we
Yeah.
can circle back to, is the epilogue satisfying, but we could discuss the Anduin dialogue with Greymane after, because we were talking about him, and that kind of
Mhm.
complicates things.
Mhm.
So there is this Anduin dialogue after everything,
Mhm.
where Greymane and Anduin reunite, and it's pretty touching because Greymane kind of viewed Anduin as a son, and we were curious how Anduin reacted to his time being imprisoned, and he doesn't seem to be doing that well, which is understandable. He seems to have a lot of guilt
Yep.
that he could have been stronger, and then he ultimately says, I'm not going back to Stormwind yet. I'm staying in the Shadowlands.
Yeah. Oh, this is a big one. This is
Yeah.
a big one. Anduin is gonna stay in the Shadowlands.
Yeah, like, I don't think this is good for
Mm,
therapy.
yeah, isn't the isn't the best thing for him to go back to Azeroth? Maybe not to immediately rule, but to
Right.
go back and sit back, relax a bit. Be around Jaina, maybe Tyrellian, and just taking a back seat in a way. Is it best for him to stay in the Shadowlands?
Yeah, I mean, you'd think that he'd want to be around familiar faces and heal. Um, but for whatever reason, there could be a few, he's decided to stay in the Shadowlands for now, which seems a bit weird because, he's pretty isolated, and this is a location of extreme trauma for him.
Yeah.
I can see how
Mm-hmm.
Anduin feels very selfless, and he's thinking that if he stays in the Shadowlands, maybe he could like right some of the wrongs that he did. That he feels an obligation to help
Mm-hmm.
those people. Maybe he feels like he's not been the greatest alliance leader, and now he's also helped kind of mess up the Shadowlands. So he's trying to right some of his wrongs. But I do think that Anduin basically isolating himself from all these characters that love him, his family, is. I'm a little. I don't think this is the right move, Anduin.
Yeah, I'm not sure
um,
either. And then again, if you are going through a big trauma like that, then you may make decisions like this, and you should let him. And I think that's what
yeah,
Greymane is doing here as well. Let me actually pull up the conversation between.
exactly.
Oh, that was the cinematic. Give me a
No,
second.
no
I
worries.
meant to pick up this one here. So here you can see how Greymane tells him. Or he starts the sentence with, when you return to Stormwind, the whole kingdom will tell you the same, and about him being strong. And Anduin just says straight up, I can't go back again. Not yet.
Yeah.
And it sort of does make sense. He wants to stay. He talks about it again, that the jailer made him do things. Specifically the words, the things he made me do, dot, dot, dot. So he
Yeah.
probably does want to go back and right some of those wrongs before he leaves, for him to be able to properly put it behind him. Maybe he feels that if he goes back and lives on, he'll just feel guilty and regret for the rest of his life. So, yeah, I mean, the more I think about it, then I guess it makes sense from his point of view when you've gone through something traumatic like that. But from like an outside point of view, it feels like it would be safer to keep him back in Stormwind, even if he doesn't rule. Just taking a back seat and taking things easy and having people who care about him around him. I think that would have felt better, at least from a sort of parental point of view. I think that
Yeah,
would make sense.
yeah.
Yeah.
There's two interesting wrinkles with this plan, and one is that he's like, oh, if Turalyon can keep things safe in my absence, which I don't know if that's a good deal, because Turalyon is a lot less of a pacifist than Anduin, and I know that cross-faction, rating is coming in 925, but Turalyon has been very warmongering.
Yeah.
He's sitting on the throne. He's talking about wanting to like reclaim more territories. That the warfront was a good start.
Yeah.
And there's also the Il'gynoth whisper of the Golden One claims a vacant throne. So that doesn't sound very good.
No, it doesn't. And it's a good point with the cross faction stuff as well. Anduin being around would actually add some lore to that bit and make it a fun, not just a like mechanic gameplay thing that the players get, but maybe something lore wise as well that makes the players cooperate to do something directly together. So that could have been nice with having Anduin around, since he's the perfect person to be that middleman between the factions. But yeah, Turalyon might make things like that more complicated.
Yeah.
Although I don't
It
think
is a
Blizzard will take
little-
cross faction away from us just because of that. But lore wise, I think it's
You
dangerous.
think Anduin being a little naive and being like, I trust Turalyon, that is kind of in line with how he's not the most seasoned leader and like tries to assume the best of everyone. So
I mean, that
can
is
see
true.
That being,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I can see that being in character as like this is the flaw
Quite
of his
Anduin
and
like,
flaws to
yeah.
be present.
Mm-hmm.
The thing which I find a little more confusing that we were just discussing before the show, and we're not going to discuss the book a ton, but I think that this part is important to include, is that at the end of the Sylvanas novel, in the epilogue, there is a strong hint that Anduin may have spent some time with Sylvanas, helping her reclaim souls from the Maw. We added it to the end of that linked article if you want to grab it quick, Annie. But basically, in the epilogue, she's talking about wanting to find Athanos and like having more purpose, and she's thinking about how she was unfair to Anduin. And then there is a line that she hears a distinctive clank of metal armor. And then the next line is, hope, Anduin had told her, is what you have when all other things have failed you. Where there is hope, you make room for healing for all things that are possible and some that are not. And then the final line is, Sylvanas Windrunner felt hope rise within her, and for the first time in so very long, she invited it in. So...
Invited hope in.
Yeah, so... at first I'm like, I didn't know who this was, because like it doesn't say it's Anduin, but I think it's Anduin instead of Nathanos, because Anduin's armor is so clanky and heavy, and Nathanos is like like his armor is lighter, and
it's true.
He's a hunter, but Anduin's his shoulders are massive, and also how the line about the clank of metal armor is followed by an Anduin quote that makes it seem that it could be Anduin.
So Anduin is helping Sylvanas with a very taxing dailies in the Maw. Potentially.
Yeah, So, I mean, I guess it will go faster for them, and it could make sense that if Anduin feels guilt about what he did, that he would want to
maybe he feels
some of his wrongs.
Exactly. Maybe he feels responsible for some of those souls, right? So he feels like it makes sense for him to be there as well to help them
Yeah.
get to the right place, because
He could
he
also,
was the one who led those souls, you know, in the wrong place.
yeah. Also, I mean, he had some, he decided to go to war in BFA. He had some fumbles with that as well. Like he didn't help Tyrande at the start. The Alliance couldn't afford ships, and Tyrande got mad with him with the Warfront and became the Night Warrior because he still wouldn't provide aid. So maybe he feels responsible in his own way for needed deaths in the Fourth War as well. So, but yeah, it
I do
does
think it's
seem
that.
it seems a little weird that he would still help Sylvanas and like choose to stay
It does
with her.
feel. It does feel
Um,
really weird. The only explanation is that he feels guilt. He feels
Yeah.
that Sylvanas may not have been much worse than what he was, and I think that's what's kind of leading him there, which I guess is also part of his character, because he would always be quite wouldn't
very
he
harsh
always
on
be,
himself.
yeah, very harsh on himself, very wanting to be fair,
Yeah.
and if Sylvanas gets this punishment, then I should get partial punishment. I also
Yeah.
sent this and that soul to the wrong place. So I do think it would kind of fit with him. I think I was kind of hoping, with everything that Anduin went through in Shadowlands, I hoped that he would become stronger and then go back to Azeroth and almost be like a new man in a way. Obviously, with him still being inside there somewhere, but a newly harsher one after his experience. But it seems like instead he's still him. He
Yeah,
feels guilty. He wants to stay back, make sure that he deserves to go back, and like you said, a bit of naivety there with trusting into Rallion as well. So yeah, he's still Anduin.
Yeah, I do think it's a bit disappointing that it ends in this way because I think that Anduin, didn't get as much flashy merchandise as Sylvanas, but I thought that he was an interesting character that a lot of people related to. Like, he clearly had some flaws, but he, like, he was a leader that was trying to choose peace instead of,
Yeah.
a constant cycle of war. His father was a warrior, but he wasn't very good at physical combat, and instead he was, kind of quiet and shy and like more of a healer. And we saw quest lines where he was, being like emotional and vulnerable and reflecting on how he could be a better leader. And I think that is rare, especially in this type of video game where like you think young male ruler of this kingdom, like he must be like very like tough and warrior.
Yeah.
And I thought that Anduin was a very good way of like inverting that stereotype. So I think it would have been interesting if they continued with him and we actually saw him rebuilding from this,
Yeah.
instead of being like, oh, now his character is complicated, we gotta throw him in the maw, we gotta
Yeah.
retire him for a
Yeah.
bit. Um,
He's going through a trauma, so
yeah, like it seems that whenever a character goes through trauma, Blizzard kind of like shelves them for a bit as opposed to
yeah.
trying to deal with it. Like even with Sylvanas, it's just like, oh, oop, we're gonna keep it a mystery. We're not gonna show any quests as to her like inner turmoil, and I don't know if it's a risky commercial choice to show it, but I liked Anduin's nuance, and I think it does feel a little like kind of sad and cruel to just have him in the maw, not seeing his family and loved ones like ever again for a while.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I agree. I agree completely. I think it would have been nice for him to come back to Stormwind, and with his newly found experience, make decisions and lead the the city, the kingdom, everything based on that. But Maybe this is the best way to keep him being Anduin, because it makes sense for his personality to do this, to feel guilt.
I just hope he shows up in the future. I hope this isn't like, okay, we're gonna shelve both Sylvanas and
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
so I
I'm
think
okay with
people
Sylvanas
really...
being shelved for 5 years. Okay, we don't need to see
Yeah.
her anytime soon. But I do hope that Anduin comes back. Maybe with the new expansion. I don't know. Maybe
I
that's
mean,
too soon. I don't know.
He was such like a constant part of WoW, and you know, like he was always kind of in the background, and we all kind of grew up with him. You know, when he was a little kid, in Onyxia's lair. And if this is how they're going to do it, I don't think it was the right move to have a dialogue imply that, you know, Anduin just needs some like time off to meditate, and then the book makes it seem like Anduin is helping Sylvanas. Like, I think that you know, maybe it's trying to be purposely open-ended, maybe so it doesn't confirm anything, but if the book is meant to hint that it's Anduin, I think that should have been in-game, been clearer. Like, if Anduin's going to be iced for a few years, I think that he needed more of a send-off. And yeah, I don't, it's sort of like, I can look at this plot and be like, okay, it makes sense for his character, but it's still that wasted potential of, well, I wish they instead decided to, you know, keep Anduin in game, or, you know, show more of Sylvanas' emotions in quest. Like, you know, I would have preferred a different direction with all that. So, you know, Sylvanas' fate by itself seems fine, but like Anduin kind of piecing out and helping her, and like no one really reacting to that. To me, I'm a little more not okay with that.
Yeah. No, I think that's fair. I feel like I guess I'm more acceptant of it because it feels like something he would do. But I do agree that it doesn't feel very good. It's especially because, like you said, it's kind of like happening in the darkness of we don't know what's going on. Maybe we want to know how it goes when he's helping her with those dailies, but we're probably not going to hear anything more of it. Yeah.
What does Turalyon say about this? You know, what are the Alliance leaders saying when they're like, oh, shit, Anduin just left and didn't say goodbye? Like, what is Jaina saying about
like, maybe
this?
that should have had its own cutscene, because it's a big deal, right?
Yeah, like, we were just saying that the Anduin cinematic just sort of ended abruptly. It's like, boop, and Anduin is healed, you know, let's ignore this, and, you know, let's ignore what he's doing. And there was no, like, real sense of reconciliation or people reflecting on Anduin, and if we just said we liked the epilogue because it had all the characters react to Sylvanas, it's like, well, if Anduin's staying behind, why don't we have all the characters react to Anduin as well?
Maybe the idea is because if you think about it, what he was saying to Greymane as well was not much, right? He's only talking about he's not able to leave yet. Like he said the word yet, right? I'm pretty sure he did.
Yeah, he did. He said yet.
So I think it could be the case that he doesn't know himself yet what he's gonna do. And because of that, it didn't feel like they could flesh out a proper scene for it yet. So maybe the final what is going to happen is still up in the air, and maybe we will get some kind of story cutscenes or something explaining what's going to happen next. But maybe it's just not ready yet because at this point, Anduin doesn't really know himself.
Yeah, or it could also be a interesting way to bring him back in the future if it's like, oh, you know, for a period, say the next expansion, Anduin is off in the Shadowlands finding himself, but he's going to return, you know, in the future. So, yeah, so, I mean, basically, I would have liked the Shadowlands story to go differently. I think this epilogue tied up what it could, but I think that Blizzard in general was too secretive with the story and doesn't do a great job explaining trauma or like complex feelings among characters, and they should have more moments like this to reflect on how the story was going.
I mean, I was not expecting any more cutscenes at all in general. I'm kind of happy that this happened in the first place, and we'll see where it goes after. One more random comment that I just remembered now. When I just
Yeah.
watched the second part of the cutscene,
Mm-hmm.
when Sylvanas jumps into the maw, I thought that looked really cool. But
Yeah.
imagine if Tyrande pushed her. I
Oh.
mean, I don't know if that would have been good story wise, but I think that would have been like entertaining to see Tyrande push her
Yeah.
in instead.
Yeah, no. I think I'm curious what happened to Tyrande because I mean she gave out the punishment, but her voice sounded very angry. So I'm wondering if she'll
And
be
expression
able to.
too, like facial
Yeah.
expressions were also very angry. I actually thought that she was kind of at peace now after learning about Elune and stopping her and everything. I thought Tyrande had kind of like randomly become zen about everything. So it's
I'm
still
glad she didn't become Zen. Like I'm like okay, that's good. Like I think this was kind of healthy anger.
yeah.
Uh,
I agree. I
yeah.
agree.
Like
I think it's good.
yeah, like in 9-1, she's all like, I'm going to sacrifice myself to take Sylvanas down. And I felt that here she was clearly still angry, but she was, like, taking a very measured tone, like, making all of her words count, and thinking beyond her people to trying to save even more souls. So I think that was a good addition, because I think Blizzard sometimes doesn't do a great job showing characters that are angry that deserve to be angry.
Yeah.
And
So
they've
this
missed
was
the mark
good.
with Tyrande in the past, but I
Yeah.
think here this was a better way of showing that. You know, here's a character that's justified in being angry,
Yeah.
and you know she's not going to be nice, but she is doing something that is reasonable considering the
Yeah, she's doing it
situation.
correctly. Like she
Yeah.
didn't push Sylvanas into the maw. She's doing it properly. And also, yeah, because I remember we talked about it before, and I was really disappointed with how Tyrande seemed to just be very accepting of Elune saying no, and just be like, "Oh, okay, yeah, that's true. All right, not gonna be mad." I was worried that was the direction it was going towards, but yeah, it was nice to see that she was still mad about this.
Yeah. So, two more quick dialogues we wanted to go over before we discuss 925 in a little more detail. One of these is that the sisters have like a little RP moment with Sylvanas where like they catch up and say goodbye to each other before the actual judgment happens, which the novel alludes to as well. Like Sylvanas says that she thought it was like very dignified that she was allowed to say goodbye to her sisters. And I'm a little sad because, you know, we never actually got like a high definition cinematic reunion between the three of them. We did have that comic. And now we have this little dialogue option where Verisa and Ilaria are talking about her. And it seems, you know, at the end of Three Sisters, it seemed like they were all very bitter and arguing, and none of them could reconcile, and Sylvanas was about to kill them. And here, it seems like the process of healing has begun with them as well. You know, they're reflecting on her legacy, and they're saying we must find a way to cling to hope, and you know, maybe we will you know, see Sylvanas again if she stays true to her word, like her real self, not the, you know, warped version of herself. So, you know, it seems like they were all a bit broken because they've all suffered lots of trauma. So it's nice to see that they are, you know, getting some degree of peace. Although, if Illyria is with Turalyon and now he's in charge of Stormwind,
Oh yeah.
that might not be, things might be messy. But, yeah, I just wish we got more of them in game, especially because the book makes it clear, they meant a lot to each other, and the book makes it clear that Sylvanas was very upset when Verisa rejected her offer to go to the Undercity in war crimes. That rejection, like, really stung her, and was like yet another example that like nothing good happens in life and she should just work with the jailer. So it would have been, I think it would have been good if we had these updated, more sophisticated expressions to have the three of them actually talking to each other. So, you know, missed opportunity.
Yeah,
Maybe when
I think it would
Sylvanas
have.
is done.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I think it would have been nice to have them as a little, like an in-game cutscene, just a few lines back and forth, because I think there's many people who just play the game and aren't super invested into lore.
Mm.
Miss that they're all sisters, and I think it's sometimes nice to bring the family aspect to characters in the game. So it would have been nice to put them all, in the same room and have a few lines. Even the lines that we just saw, just something to put it together that they're
Yeah.
family. Like Jaina got plenty in BFA, which was really nice. That
Mm.
was part of the stuff that I actually really liked in BFA, the storytelling of Jaina and her family. And I think it would have been nice to see a little bit of that in Sylvanas too. I think it's always really nice to see the sort of human side to things
Yeah.
in characters in game.
Like the world building, like that's what
Yeah.
people gets them drawn into
Yeah.
the universe.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Mm-hmm. Definitely.
And this final bit of dialogue will highlight. I'm gonna change up the notes and highlight a different part of 925 after. But we have an interesting dialogue with Bolvar and Darian, who discuss the Helm of Domination and Talia and Ice Crown Citadel and what's next, which actually flows into some 925 stuff we found on the PTR. And this is interesting because, Darian was the head for Horseman under Bolvar. And, they worked together. And Bolvar, leading up to the Shadowlands cinematic, Bolvar tried to fake that the Helm was taking him over, so Darian and the other horsemen would unite and kill whoever won the Sylvanas Lich King duel, which failed because, the helm was destroyed, no one put it on.
Yeah.
But it was neat how, kind of like the first and second in command were talking. And we learned a lot of interesting things, which was, oh, surprise, without the helm, you're going to have all these, undead running around.
Yep.
And, we got rid of something that controlled them. Oops. And Bolvar seems still worried about Ice Crown Citadel. And I thought there was an interesting exchange, how he's like, oh, maybe I should go back there and, protect how I can. And Darian's like, you've served enough, like, go back and, now it's time for you to be a father. Talia needs you as well. And I thought it was touching how Darian was like, sometimes the greatest act of service is to be present for those who need us. So, like, his daughter needs Bolvar. And it's like, others can watch Ice Crown Citadel while Bolvar tries to, get some happiness and family back in his life. So I thought that was, an interesting exchange. Again, would be cool to have more of them earlier in Shadowlands, but I thought it was like a neat character study about like how serving can be a good thing, but then also like you can overextend yourself, kind of going back to Anduin.
Yeah.
Like, Bolvar is trying to like overly sacrifice himself, and
Instead
here we
of
have
going to
Anduin
his
also,
daughter, yeah.
Yeah. And, Bolvar was the one that kind of raised Anduin growing up. So it's like, okay, well, maybe Anduin inherited some of this, like, overly self-sacrificing vibes from Bolvar.
Yeah, that's a good point.
But yeah, why was there no Bolvar and Anduin thing? Like, I'm a little confused how everyone's like, oh, your real daughter, Talia. And it's like, what about your kind of adopted son, Anduin? Like,
Yeah. There's so many. I mean, I guess it's difficult as well to include everything,
Yeah.
but there's actually so many relationships that were so crucial that could have had more highlight on them. And I guess this is the part where they have to decide which lines, which relationships are going to be focused on. Because yeah, like Bolvar, Anduin, we have potentially Uther also having some more insights there. And who else did we have?
Bolvar would have made a lot of sense because they were both controlled by the jailer.
Yeah, true.
And like
true also.
they also
And
they were both
his helm
victims-
was the one that was shattered by Sylvanas as well. So like
Yeah.
everything connects really well together. But
and like Bolvar had to take over Arthas's role as the Lich King, and then part of Arthas's spirit was, like, bound to Anduin's, Mournblades. So it's like they both
Yeah.
were kind of like tainted by Arthas's legacy as well, and yeah, I think it's yeah. Kind of, I feel
And
like, obviously there's so many character interactions, but I think that would be a good one if that they should cover. So,
yeah, no, I agree with you. I think that would have been a really solid one, and especially with his decision to stay, I think it would have been nice to have a sort of, a fatherly figure who's still around to comment on that, because
yeah,
it's
especially if
a great interest for a parent.
yeah, especially if Bolvar is like, I tried to resist the jailer, but maybe I did some questionable things under his control. It's like, Anduin is struggling with the same things. So they could have some advice to each other. But yeah, yeah, I think that's just an issue with Shadowlands. Like, there were so many possible hype relationships, and it just was hard to fit in all these things into the game, especially with the gaps between.
I think it really is
everything.
difficult. Like we had
Yeah.
Thrall as well. We would have liked to potentially have seen more of Anduin's father himself as well. I mean,
Or
we
his
did get
mom.
or his
Yeah.
mom. We did get the cutscene, which was really cool. But in general, the more the better. I guess maybe some more discussions, but at least that one did feel really good. So that was good with
Yeah.
Varian. And
So I wanted to. Do we have anything more to say on the Sylvanas thing? Because I thought it could be good to highlight the 925 stuff kind of surrounding Bolvar and, like, the undead
I
kind of running
I
around
wanna
unchecked.
yeah, I want to say one more
Sure.
thing, which is
Yeah, go
where's Nathanos?
Yeah.
The whole of Shadowlands has happened now. Like he was in a big cutscene, a big cinematic even, wasn't it? With Tyrande,
Yeah.
where she killed him. So he was supposed to end up in the Shadowlands, and he was happy to end up in the Shadowlands. He said he wanted to go back and go there and meet his queen, but then nothing.
Yeah, I'm confused by that because so when the cinematic ended, I thought for sure it was going to when she started going down the hole and I saw there was still like a few seconds left. I'm like, "Oh, it's going to fade to black and then she'll like be in the maw and like see Nathanos like a hint of Nathanos or like an arrow and follow it." I thought it was going to end with that. And instead it just faded to black for a while. But yeah, I just with how much they featured Nathanos in the book, as well in the Sylvanas book, as well as showing how devoted he was in Shadows Rising. I don't think he's sympathetic at all in game, but the books did add some more dimensions to his personality, and he's such a central figure of Sylvanas, and people, the internet exploded when he had the declaration of love in the Loyalist ending. So
Yep.
it's weird he just didn't show up at all.
Yeah, it does feel weird, especially with the specific mention of him meeting her in the Shadowlands, because we're leaving the Shadowlands now. So when are we supposed to see him meet her?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, maybe that ending with the metal, I don't know if that's meant to reference Nathanos instead, but again, his armor is not very metal. It was, he was stealthy with the bow and arrow. But, yeah, I don't know. But yeah, I think that could have been an interesting thing to show in the cinematic. Like, maybe the cinematic could have been a little longer to have, like, more pensive reflections of Anduin, or, like, Sylvanas kind of looking around the maw and then seeing, like, a Nathanos thing somewhere. Like a hint, like, oh, he's close by, not like a full-on mushy reunion, but like like I see a hint of him, like, he'll be my first soul, free, something like that. But, yeah, I'm curious where he is, too. Especially because, yeah, the book really features him. We'll do a write-up on his development in the novel. And that will be up later this week. And he was also present in Shadows Rising. Again, not the most likable character, but you could tell that he was super devoted to her. So it's weird that they continued featuring him in the books, and he was everywhere in BFA, and then it was just like, nope,
Yeah.
people didn't like him in Shadowlands, so
Yeah.
instead of, portraying him better, we're just, no more Nathanos.
Yeah.
So, and, like, no one even mentions him. Like, that's so
No,
cool. Like,
that's
with
the
the
thing. Like,
Sylvanas
no
thing,
one
no one
mentions
is
it.
like,
Yeah.
no one is like, oh, Nathanos in BFA, he did a lot of bad things, but I remember him as a human. Like, it's just, it's
Yeah.
like, man, everyone's
Just
forgotten
forgotten.
about Nathanos.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that
But
was the
yeah,
last
no,
thing that I wanted to mention because
Yeah.
it seems like everything is sort of coming to an end now in terms of Shadowland's story, and if that's the case, where is he? Because now Sylvanas is in the Maw, right? I'm not sure if we're gonna see more of her. I think that might be the last
Yeah.
glimpse of her. But if it is, then that's weird because we didn't see Nathanos yet.
The owl, that makes the owl even funnier because, like, the owl was having the stare down with Nathanos.
Oh, yeah,
In the BFA cinematic, so it's like, oh, well, that owl is definitely going to find Nathanos because the
Yep.
owl has it in for him.
What if we meet Nathanos now, and he's like,
God.
where's my queen?" And it's like, "Well, she's doing dailies in the Maw," and then he's like, "Okay, I'm
Yeah.
gonna jump there too."
Or
I don't
Nathanos is
know.
like, oh, like, oh, like, Sylvanas, you're back, and she's like, I'm enlightened now, like, I'm
Yeah,
I'm
because that's
different.
the
I
thing. It would be so
changed."
interesting
Yeah.
to see how they would interact after that as well.
Yeah.
Because
like,
she's
he's
changed.
Still, like,
Yeah.
Forsaken. So.
Yeah, yeah.
So yeah, we will definitely be discussing this more next week about Sylvanas' character development because the book released today. We wanted to give people time to read it, but in the meantime, we will be putting up a review later today. It was going to be up earlier, but then cinematics happened.
Yeah.
We'll have a review up, and then we also have some breakout spotlights on what her exact involvement in the Wrathgate was, what her thoughts were on Teldrassil, and most importantly, what was the actual bargain with the jailer? How did that all go down? So stay tuned for those. And yeah,
Next week's show.
Let's discuss 925.
Yeah,
I think
PTR
we
stuff.
can. So this patch, it's the cross faction stuff, which we knew was coming. But there's a lot of little flavor bits as well that kind of continue some parts of the Shadowlands story, kind of bringing it back to Azeroth. And the Bolvar conversation, I have a few threads from that continue as there is a reconciliation dialogue with him and Talia. And, oh, oops, surprise, without the Helm of Domination, we've got zombies running around everywhere. So, why
Do you
don't we
think
just
we're gonna have
discuss that first?
another undead raid in the new expansion?
Yeah.
Back in we're back in Azeroth and we're fighting the undead again.
Yeah. So, the Bolvar and Talia conversation, basically, she kind of extends forgiveness to him, and she says that she won't agree with his choice, but she understands why he did it. And
I'll set the text up on the screen as well.
Yeah. So, he was afraid when he was freed from the Helm that she would reject him and see only a monster. And, they basically agree that they're going to try to, be a family moving forward, that he's going to try to be a father to her finally. And, the seeing only a monster, that's actually another interesting parallel with Sylvanas, because, in the book and in game, she's always concerned that, as a Forsaken, people only see her as a monster that they wouldn't, there's no humanity left in her. So, Bolvar is kind of going through something similar. And also, it's tragic how he assumed that he was the Lich King, so no one could love him, and there were no parts of his humanity left. And it's like, the jailer kind of does that to characters, like manipulates them to think that, like, they're so cold and unfeeling and no one loves them. But in reality, it's like they just need to kind of have a reality check.
Yep.
Yeah, I think it's touching, especially with how many families are kind of torn apart. Like,
Absolutely.
you know,
Absolutely.
like Anduin in comparison, like Bolvar is like, I don't know him. And
Yeah, like
Anduin's
no
parents-
conversation. At least
Yeah.
these two got a conversation. And it is sweet that she says, especially the words, I see you for the hero you are. And the father you can
Yeah.
yet be, if you're willing. Like, it's very hopeful for the future, and it feels, yeah, it feels good to see this.
Yeah, I mean, like Anduin was orphaned. You know, I think there were so many examples of like orphans and just like death because it sounded badass earlier, and now they're trying to undo that. Like, you know, Thrall met up with his mom,
Yep.
and Jaina got to reconcile with her mom, and you
Yep.
know, Talia and Bolvar can move forward. And hey, look, Bolvar is not dead, so you know, improvements. So I think it's good that there's, you know, some intergenerational reconciliation. Not everything has to you know, end in tragedy there.
Yep. Agreed.
So yeah, and then on the oh shit, you know, meanwhile things are a mess side, there is a blood elf special quest line, which is interesting because you can do this when you have completed the blood elf heritage armor. This is like a follow up to it, and basically, the zombies are running around Ghostlands, and
Yeah.
you need to, you know, push things back, and it's funny because, you know, in the dialogue we just talked about, the you know, Darian's like, the Epilogue Blade has this under control, and your
Yeah,
Lothamar is
next
like,
up, like, all blood
Yeah.
elves, come help.
yeah, he's like, if they cause such problems here, I suspect matters in Northrend may be even worse. So it's
Yeah.
like, oh, I feel bad for Bolvar.
Mhm.
But yeah, there are a few interesting things here. One is going back to family, is that there was a blood elf orphan from Children's Week, and it was hinted that Liadrin like adopted the blood elf, and it's now she's grown up and is helping you know, fight. And I think that, you know, that's really cool. How again it's like making
Connected
these characters
together.
have families.
Yeah, I like that.
It's also cool. I think that it's interesting how like a faction leader has an adopted child as well. You know, different types of you know, families. I think that was cool. And more also on a different tack, there could be more rewards from this. One is a green Hawkstrider mount, an old model,
Yeah.
but people love Hawkstriders. And
Apparently,
it's
this
not a
color
full-
was never used before, except for the armored version, right?
yeah, so that looks really cool. But yeah, there's only the swift green Hawkstrider, not the plain one, and people love, you know,
Exactly.
their plain mounts, especially as we've seen with, you know, old school
Oh, yeah.
classic WoW, and those,
Yeah.
you know, they're low polygon, but people like them.
Yeah, I think there's something about armor making mounts look a bit clunky, which sometimes you don't want that. You just want it to be like simple and elegant, and that's what these unarmored mounts give you. I remember when you know, the mount speed actually mattered on the mount itself, and that would upset me because that means I'm forced to use the armored ones when I
Yeah.
want to use the unarmored ones. So yeah, it's nice to get this color as well, as it did exist as the armored version.
Yeah. Another cool thing is that the Blood Knight transmog for Paladins seems to be finally coming. Blood Elf Paladins receive a different ending dialogue when they wrap up the quests, and there are some Blood Knight items added, and they look really cool. You know, they match the Blood Elf Blood Knight tabard, and they look similar to the armor that Liadrin's guards wear. So I think that's neat how that is getting added. And yeah, the quest is like, you know, accept this gift as a symbol of your dedication and bravery. We will never forget that your aid was instrumental in ending this crisis. So yeah, it seems like that is it's neat how like more Blizzard made it seem they were done with heritage armor, but it seems they're still adding some interesting race specific things to the game, which is neat.
Blood elves did get their heritage armor, right?
Yeah, Night
before.
Elves, like the four Night Elves, undead, human, Draenei, Orc, and Troll didn't. So
Okay.
like a lot
Yeah.
of the older races were missing it.
Yeah. They're probably coming
But
too.
yeah,
Mm-hmm.
I hope this is showing that they're not done with the like kind of world building things, and it's nice that the Blood Knights are getting some cosmetic because there are a lot of like subsets of races.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's nice how like the Night Warriors get their own thing, Blood Knights. There are some class race combos that are pretty iconic that could get specific things.
Mm-hmm.
They also added some stuff for the Dark Iron Dwarves. There was a mount that was data mined in battle for Azeroth, as well as weapons that they never did anything with.
The
And
flame
they
wolf?
are adding them in, and they all look really cool.
Oh my god. Is it this one, the flame wolf?
Yeah, the Flame Wolf. Yeah.
That
Good
looks
fiery boy.
incredible.
Yeah.
Here it is.
So I'm glad that they are going back and finding reasons to add all these old things. Like, I thought it was really cool how Legion Time Walking added the Nightborn weapons. And it's nice that they took these super old, Dark Iron shields and are putting them in the game, as well as the cool Fire Puppy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's some transmogs here, which do look really cool.
Yeah, so I hope that this is like promising that they will be adding more of this sort of thing, and with all the discussion that we're done with Shadowlands, we're moving back to Azeroth, the story is going back to our world. Hopefully, we can see more of these things. And they hopefully they won't be abandoning the concept of heritage armor if they're doing interesting stuff like that for the Blood Elves.
I think I think they've definitely changed their minds about a lot of things when it comes to these customization things. Like we have mentioned a few times now, they talked about not doing any more updates to customization, and now they're adding a bunch of things. So I do see that they're deciding that this direction is actually popular among people. It's something that people want to see. So I think they're putting more effort into it. So that's nice.
Yeah. There was one thing I wanted to highlight that I didn't put in. Oh yeah, one second. So since we were speaking of since we were speaking about the loose story ends and how the Forsaken didn't have heritage armor and how like the Blood Knights got a little Easter egg questline with rewards. I wanted to highlight that there is an encrypted Tirisfal Glades map on the patch 925 PTR that indicates that there has been some healing of the Blight going on. And there's also a hidden model for Kalia Menethil, who, is not ruling the Forsaken, but she is on the Horde Council. And some of the areas with updated names are outdoor areas. And it's interesting because, there were hints a really long time ago for like a Dark Ranger questline with Dark Ranger Velonara. And it would be cool if maybe they got something too. And we were just saying that Forsaken, it seemed weird that Forsaken weren't weighing in on this Sylvanas questline. Her judgment, so maybe there is a special quest line that will explain what comes next, how they react to news of her being in the maw and betrayal and strong feelings. So hopefully this is related to that. But yeah, I would like to see what happens next. What happens next with Kalia. It would be nice to see more actual Forsaken with the Undercity, because the book didn't really touch on them, and Kalia is kind of an outsider. More Lillian Voss. And it would be interesting if we got that heritage armor or saw something with, Dark Rangers for a change.
Yeah, because that's another thing as well. We talk about Teldrassil because, well, that one went through the worst out of everything. But even Undercity did go through a lot, and the people, the Forsaken did lose their home, and it was again Sylvanas' fault. So it's going to be interesting to see what the development of that side is.
Yeah, and I mean, like, they loved her. Like, her banners were everywhere. And we'll mention in the book review, but the book kind of skips over her becoming this adored leader of the Forsaken. Like, it doesn't really show a lot of kind of just general slice of life, day-to-day moments of her thriving as a ruler, which I thought was a little sad because, it's nice to see if someone's like, oh, this person is super competent and beloved. It's nice to see them in their element, doing the thing they're good at. But yeah, I do think that I could see how they would feel personally betrayed.
Yeah, absolutely.
First, that she yells that, they are nothing and blasts away at the end of BFA. And then they learn that she was in league with the jailer. I think that they'd have a lot of feelings about all that.
Absolutely.
So I think that they need their own resolution
as well.
Mm-hmm. And not like, Kalia being like, I'm here to heal you. It's like, no, I want to see like actual Forsaken reacting to all this.
I completely agree. Like we have Tyrande who represents the Night Elves. And I'm sure we'll see where the Night Elves will end up and what the story for them is going to be, because we believe in Tyrande bringing it some kind of peace. But the Forsaken were betrayed. They need to have something to say as well.
Grandpa, no! Oh no, I need to... 1 second. No
worries.
No, don't move that. Bad. No,
My cat is finally home.
No.
And she's a bit wet. I think she's been washed. She keeps trying to go on top of my PC. She knows it's a worm, but no-oh. No-oh, I can't have water drops go down into my PC.
Sorry, he was devouring some... You know those bags, like, where they use for packaging for jewelry, how they're kind of, like, see-through?
Oh, like a thin paper kind of thing?
Yeah, or it's like mesh. He was eating
mesh is the word, yeah.
Yeah. And then So... Now he is no longer eating it, but hopefully... Normally when he eats those things, he ends up throwing it up. I don't know why he eats them. So hopefully I've saved him in time.
Oh, it's like animals. It's like, don't you remember? You puked last time you did this. Nope.
It's like, Luna, why do you keep going outside? You hate being outside.
Yep, exactly. Yeah. She was out for 24 hours once before, so... Still not learning. But yes, where were we?
Oh, sorry, where were we? I heard him and I was like, oh no, danger.
Yeah. We're talking about, just stating that we do think the Forsaken should have a last word on everything as well. And I think we kind of wrapped that part of the topic. And in terms of storylines, we have another one, which is to do with Jaina.
Yeah.
So we can jump into that one. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So Jaina and Khadgar have a reunion, and I think it's cool for two reasons. The first reason is that normally when a character is in one expansion, they kind of vanish. We had Magni in BFA, Khadgar in Legion, Velen in Legion, like they get kind of shuffled out. So it's nice to be like, oh, Khadgar's alive. That's neat. And also, Jaina has been around for a while, and she, she did kind of end on bad terms with Khadgar and Legion, so it's nice being like, oh yeah, these characters have friendships that go beyond an expansion. It makes it seem more real. Mm-hmm. And, Khadgar hasn't seen Jaina since, kind of her, like, calmer philosophy shedding of guilt in BFA, so... Yeah, it's nice. It's kind of like what we were just saying about Sylvanas in the novel. Like, it's nice when you get to see characters, like, in their element, not only when they're, like, really stressed out and kind of at their worst. Mm-hmm. So,
not only if they're just nice. About to die or just about to kill souls. Yeah.
But yeah, Khadgar seems to be his goofy, charming self. He wants to, find the brokers. He thinks it's very intriguing. I'm sure he'll just, carry around a bunch of crap like he did during the legendary quest line with his Apexis crystals.
Yep.
And what's interesting is that, I wonder if this will be the end for Khadgar as well soon, because, he was prematurely aged in the past, and he has a line where he's like, I suppose I wanted to gaze upon the realms of death with mine own eyes before, ... Is everything all right, Khadgar? And then he says, I feel the weight of years upon me, Jaina. Jaina, the burden's carried, the choice is made. So, it's like, is he, what's up with Khadgar? Is he, is he going to naturally die soon? Which would be interesting because, not many characters just get to peacefully die in a World of Warcraft.
No, that's true.
Maybe he will. Yeah.
I feel the weight of years upon me. Feels that, man. Tales of conniving brokers, a city of secrets, and a land of ancient knowledge. How intriguing.
Yeah. Something which was also interesting was that in Oribos there was always a watchful raven that was allied with the Kirin Tor that was just chilling in Oribos. And this conversation starts where Khadgar flies down to Jaina as a raven before turning into Khadgar. So it's like, was he just kind of chilling in Oribos all along?
Just watching.
For a while?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I thought it was a nice exchange that they had.
Yeah, I agree. It's nice.
Yeah.
Just adds a little bit of flavor and a bit of reminder of a character we
we're
haven't
like,
seen
what
in a while.
happened to Khadgar?
Yeah.
Like, why did he just leave everyone?
Yeah. Well, he's feeling old and curious about the Shadowlands.
Yeah. So, but yeah, it kind of also makes you nostalgic for Legion, how it's so, like, he had such personality, with that legendary quest line, like, he was just, like, kind of funny and charming, and it's nice that we're getting more conversations with Bolvar and Talia now, but it's like, hey, would have been cool if Bolvar was, more present in the middle, not
More
just
talks,
sounding like a commander, but getting his personality across, sounding more human, like Khadgar is always cracking jokes and, doing things, kind of being a bit whimsical. So it's kind of like, oh, it's Legion Dad. I wish Shadowlands Dad was as cool as Legion Dad.
Yeah, actually true.
Yeah.
Hey, Shadowlands Dad looked really cool, at least. Maybe he wasn't cool in person so much, but he looked very cool.
Yeah. But, yeah, I mean, I think it's just... It seems like this epilogue has 9-2, the epilogue, and these follow-up things have a lot of little story moments people want all along that maybe aren't super flashy, but, if they can't do cutscenes for everything, I think it's good to have stuff like this as opposed to just like, it's as opposed to being like, oh, this is a short story that you have to read elsewhere about Khadgar reuniting, or, here's a short story about Bolvar and Talia. I think it's nice to have the dialogue in the game.
Agreed.
And with that, we should probably discuss the main thing of 925, which is, makes us wonder about the expansion, Season 4.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Of course. I was like, which one is the main thing? Yeah, that's true. Season 4. This is the first time, as far as I know, that we have a new season within the same, main patch number. And I think it's really interesting because this has never been done before. And it's a potentially very great way of making the last patch of an expansion not feel so long and dragged. Because, sure, we've had some quick expansions like Legion, but in general, there's been plenty expansions where we've had so long time at the end of it. I remember in MOP as well. Maybe it's not talked about anymore because it's so long ago, but, the last patch...
I remember.
Last patch lasted very long. So having a final patch which doesn't... require a whole new raid tier or whole new zone or whole new anything, but instead, use creativity with potential. Maybe we should talk about what it is first, actually, before I comment.
Let's talk about it first. So,
because this is what the cool thing is. Yes. So, do you want to introduce it?
Yeah, the coolest thing is that the mythic. Well, there are two things. First is that the mythic dungeon pool will add dungeons from earlier expansions in WoW. And you could vote on the ones from Warlords of Draenor, and apparently Grimrail and Iron Docks won. Yeah, I just noticed that. I'm like, oh, why did we vote on this again?
Who voted?
Yeah. But the cooler thing is that for Season 4 rating, they're going to, like, add an affix system, and they're going to add mechanical twists into all the Shadowlands raids, and change loot and difficulty, so all three
Everything
raids
is
are relevant
upscaled.
in Season 4.
Yeah.
Which I think is super good, because we've said a lot that Blizzard doesn't do a good job with evergreen content, and we wish there was more things like the Mage
having
Tower,
old raids relevant. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's like, yeah, we know that not every raid and dungeon can be a winner, but if they are a winner, like, it feels bad to just be like, okay, we gotta make them obsolete and have no one ever do this again. So I think this is a good way to make content more evergreen. There are some good parallels to Final Fantasy, and hopefully this means that, they'll be more efficient in how they create and plan content, as opposed to just having something have a shelf life of 6 months, and then once they finally get it to a good place, they get rid of it for the next thing.
Yeah, I think it's really good because like I mentioned, the time between last patch and new expansion can be quite long, and sometimes I'm sure it can pressure devs to bring an expansion too early, for example, because there's nothing going on and they really want to push something. So if you have a last season that takes covers all the old raids and puts them all in one, then I think that can keep people pretty happy and active for some time, covering those things in waiting for the new expansion. And the new expansion can be released when it's ready and when things are working and has been tested. So I think it's awesome. Also, another thing is this also helps people who want to experience every raid, but maybe doesn't play every patch. So maybe somebody missed the second patch of the expansion. I know it's very common to come for the first patch and then the last patch of an expansion. And in this case, in the last patch of the expansion, you'll also have a period of time when all the raids become relevant again. I'm sure there's people who never progressed the Sylvanas fight, for example, and now they get a chance to do that with this new upscaled version. So I think it's awesome. I think it's great to see that they're trying to, because it's also very fitting time for it. It's the last part of the expansion, making all of them relevant again. I think that's awesome. I am curious how that's going to work out in terms of what raids people will decide to complete, because having raid days for every single one of them might be a bit too much. I don't know. I guess we'll see.
Well, they said increased difficulty, but also powerful levels of raid loot. So maybe it will be like a 8.3 like corruption situation where, at the end when it was on the vendor and you could just be like super OP, or, Legion when your artifact was mega powered up. Like, maybe once you get a few of these OP pieces of raid loot, you can stomp things easily. But yeah, I think it's really good they are changing their mentality to just have a healthier version of the game and make old content relevant in a way that's more creative than like, oh, look, time walking patch, here's some face roll dungeons, the end, boring. Like, yeah, I think it's good that they are trying to add.
Yeah, and time walking gear is never relevant to anyone who's actually actively raiding or anything. So it's most people who play the game actively won't do time walking because of that.
Yeah, and I think that this has a lot of potential, how like maybe in 10.0, like the Mythic Plus season could always have some dungeons from old expansions that are part of it. Or maybe maybe once like Hall of Fame completes, they are like, okay, now we're going to add this affix system. When everyone's bored of the raid, we're going to do this for a few months as we wait for the next one to come out. But or maybe if the raids are boring in Time Walking, it's like, okay, all TBC raids are here, and we're going to have them do really cool stuff for a week. But yeah, I think that this is a really good plan. It did seem a bit far off because they use the word imagining. They're like, for season 4 rating, we're imagining, and I'm like, oh, that sounds very far off.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, this all sounds really good. The timing is a little worrisome though, because
Yeah. It probably
like,
means no expansion this year.
Yeah, no expansion this year. We just started season 3.
Yeah.
If we want to be generous and say that season 2 went on too long for various reasons, that's still season 1 was 6 months.
Yeah.
And so it's like, okay, maybe let's be generous and say, oh, they'll be shorter. It's like, they're 5 months, they're 4 months. It's still like, well, that still doesn't really bring us to 2022.
Yeah, it still brings us to 2023. And I mean, honestly, I don't think that's a bad thing. I know a lot of people are like disappointed because that's a thing now. But like, what would you rather have? Wait for no expansion and no new stuff? Or have an expansion that's released too early and everything is broken? I think having something to do in between and then having the expansion come out when it should come out is probably the best thing in the long run. In the short run, it may not feel great, but I think in the long run, this is the best solution.
Yeah,
to
I mean,
things.
if Shadowlands was like a lot of systems bloat and delays and complicated things, and as they try to do the next complicated thing, it takes longer and there are more delays. If it's a bad cycle, if they need to snap out of it, it doesn't happen instantly.
No.
But I think that this is showing that they've changed their approach to things, and it's a good first step. It's just unfortunate timing that it got to a point where there were, the massive delays and discourse and everything for them to change things around. It would have been nice if they were unveiling this, and say like, I don't know, End of Legion, or EFA, where things were moving along a bit faster on a normal schedule. But
I think you're lagging a bit.
Some change is better than none. So
yeah, you're lagging a bit and it's not stopping. I'm like waiting, like I'm sure it's gonna stop now. I'm sure it's gonna stop now, but it still goes. Do you want to refresh the server real quick? Just changing it to anything should normally be fine. Hello, test? I think that's better. Could you say something again?
Test 1, 2, 3.
Yeah, I think there's no lag anymore. Sometimes you just have to refresh the servers for one reason or another. Discord secrets. But yeah, you were talking about the what were you talking about? What were we talking about?
Just how they need to change their philosophy for things.
Oh yeah.
It's too bad that it's overlapping with during a period of delays, but it's good that they are doing something, and hopefully we will see more of this mentality in 10.0.
Absolutely, and because it could have very easily have become a one season that lasts for 10 months. Like people think like that would not happen maybe, but it could have very easily become one of those situations. So the fact that there's still a new season, the fact that there is like a new way of experiencing raids that are older as well, I think it's a good thing to try out and see how it feels. And then if people like it, I'm sure they'll do that again, consider it for future expansions as well. And if people are not a big fan, if everything is a mess, then I'm sure that they won't do that again. But I think it's a really good way to fill in the time between now and a new expansion. And also, I think we have to consider, obviously delays have been affected by pandemic and things like that as well. But on top of it, the whole scandal, losing a lot of devs, hiring a lot of new devs, like there's a lot of moving around happening on a sort of logistical, internal point of view, where having to rush an expansion would be a really bad idea. So letting people get, into things, and maybe people who never worked on the previous raids are now working on making it possible to play in the last season. So it's going to be a lot of catch up probably from new people that are going to work there. So I think it's good to give them this time to, polish their skills with that instead of a whole new expansion. And yeah, so
Yeah.
I think overall this is the best for the future of the game. Oh, and also the Microsoft takeover, because this
Yeah.
means that the new expansion will come in when Microsoft is fully taking over, and I think that's
Oh
really good
yeah,
news
that's a
too.
good point with the timing.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that maybe they kept being like, oh, we'll get the expansion out faster, or we'll, you know, we'll have a really cool AP system, and now they have to be real and be like, okay, so we're not getting faster with expansions. Um,
We have
artifacts
to
were
rethink the AP.
yeah, like maybe
Yeah.
artifacts were cool, so they're like, oh, we just need to like do artifacts every 2 years and we're good. And it's like, well, they were cool because like getting Ashbringer is cool regardless of what the system is. So the lesson learned should be like, do cool things with recognizable characters, not make the thing obsolete every
For the
2
sake
years.
of the sake. Yeah. Yeah.
So
Absolutely.
yeah, I do think that hopefully they can shift things and also have more of a sense of like the old content should be polished, like not oh look it's time walking, or even with questing on one continent, like the BFA experience is kind of disjointed and confusing, and like lore elements are hidden, so maybe it's a sense of we want to take old content and actually make it polished, not just do something rush, like, oh yeah, you can run this, there's a battle pad, or oh yeah, you can run this raid as part
Yeah.
of time walking, but actually trying to make it interesting. And I think that the Final Fantasy had a lot to do with that as well, with just how they make old content more compelling, both the raids and the quest. So fingers
Yeah,
crossed.
I
Also
think it's
today the Mage
definitely.
Tower's coming out.
Yes,
So
I was gonna
maybe
mention
Blizzard's
that.
like, yeah, like
Yeah,
old
I think there's
content is
definitely.
good.
I think it's definitely influence from a lot of people realizing, Final Fantasy. I'm sure a lot of devs already knew, but I don't
Yeah.
think they realized that the players would be interested in that. So a lot of people
Mm.
trying out Final Fantasy 14 for the first time last year brought a lot of attention to it, and people started, complimenting the things that they did that was, really good and potentially useful in WoW as well. And I do think the use of old raids and old dungeons, having a scaling system and things like that is a large part of it.
Yeah. So speaking of raids, because I know it's getting late for you, we should discuss the Race to World first, a little
Ooh.
bit, I think.
Yeah. Oh, we've
So-
already been live for 2 hours. I'm like just
Yeah.
getting started.
I know, like you had a long day.
Yeah.
I know that the cat's exhausting too.
Oh,
so
I
was
think
like,
that's
oh,
what it
this
is. I've got second wind. That's
Yeah.
why it doesn't feel so late for me.
Yeah.
But yeah.
It ended. Finally. Well, for most people it didn't end, but for the two guilds it did.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
the world. I keep saying world to first raid. The race to world first. Yes. Okay.
Yeah. So, yeah, it went on super long. First off, congrats to Echo on the
Yeah.
world first kill.
Congratulations,
of, Mythic
indeed.
Jailer.
Mm-hmm. There was
It
a surprise
was-
mythic phase.
Yeah, it was interesting because we'll discuss in a few, but like the fight went on super long,
Yeah.
and I think when it went past the 2 week mark, and then 925 news came out, Race to World First hype kind of went down, and then when we noticed in the hotfixes that Blizzard was like tuning these kind of secret jailer sounding things, like people started panicking, like, oh god, the race will continue going on, like what's going to happen? And then, surprise, there was a secret phase, and, everyone was pretty bad mental health at this point, but Echo pushed through, and they got the, world first, back-to-back with, Sanctum. And, Yeah, it's
It,
I think that it's cool the jailer had a secret phase, but I do think it was a bit late in the race to discover that. It definitely felt like 925 was siphoning the hype off of the race to world first.
Yeah, definitely. And I think, I guess part of that is because they had, the raid had so many good, long, difficult boss fights. And
Yeah.
it means that, like, I think they had more attempts on some other bosses than the jailer
Yeah, like the
himself.
crab guy was
Yeah,
like an insane blocker.
crab is
Um
down. Yeah, so I think that's a large part of it. It made the race last very, very long. And because they're playing so long hours every single day, for on like a mental level, it was too much. Honestly, it was 2 resets, right? I believe.
Yeah, plus like with how tier gear was so important and how the end bosses drop tier at the higher level, like the last bosses, the splits week seemed exceptionally grueling and also just really expensive, like exorbitant amounts of gold being
Yep.
spent. So like it wasn't just oh they're starting, mythic week 1. It's like heroic week was just grind, 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 try to gear up. And then when that second reset hit, some bosses were untested on the PTR completely, so there was, more mental stress there as well, reacting to the unknown bosses. And, I know a lot of
I have
people
a
are like,
tweet
oh,
up here.
I'd love to play video games and just, be online and play a raid and stay at a hotel, but it's like there's so much
Yeah.
pressure associated with that, when it's being competitive and the long hours and trying to stay focused, and if you mess up, like thousands of people are watching
Are
and the casters are
watching.
commenting on like why you messed up. There's just a lot of
Yeah. Yeah,
there's just it's
because
just a very stressful experience.
in esports tournaments is at most maybe like a few days or something, and you play
Yeah.
for like short amounts of time. But in the eye of the public, I mean, you're in the eye of the public very short. Obviously, you have a lot of practice hours and stuff in between
Yeah.
training and all that. But like if we compare it to even like AWC Arena, for example, you practice a lot off screen, but once you're actually in the eyes of people, it's condensed short games and that's it. Then it's over. But this is constant. You are constantly watched, constantly judged, especially if you're the reason this wipe happened, and it's ongoing for over 2 weeks, and it's insane. It's too
Yeah.
long.
It's like it sounds cool being at a hotel and having food, but it's like you're not at home in your workspace. And if the race goes on long, it's all of a sudden it's like, oh, like I'm across the country, like, who's taking care of my pets? Like, do I have enough clothes? Like, if I'm not a full-time streamer, do I have enough personal time off, to continue, raiding at this place altogether? And like, you're like in a very unfamiliar place. So, I think that I think people are just kind of like, has the race kind of hit its breaking point? Like, will stuff change in the future? Like, was it
Yeah.
worth having flying everyone to the same place and then being like, oh, oops, secret phase, let's book hotels for another week? Like that
Yeah.
money adds up, and or people were offering all this exorbitant money for the tier sets, and it's like, well, was that worth it? Especially if some places had to be like, okay, we've run out of time to raid nonstop, and even Liquid saying that their mental health was shot and they were going to take a few days off and fly back home and continue. It's like,
Yeah.
was all these increasing cost for everything
Too much.
worth the final result? Because even if Blizzard wants to use it as a promotional tool, like seeing people look exhausted and miserable on the stream is not a
Yeah,
not a
I
good
don't.
look for them as
No,
well.
it definitely isn't. The fact that a guild had to quit earlier for like
Yeah.
mental and financial reasons, and I think also from a viewer point of view, I feel like a good length is having one reset. I think is always exciting.
Yeah.
And then after the reset, not immediately killed, because then that would be unfair. NA would win in that case because they get it earlier.
Yeah.
But like a reset in maybe like 2 days or so, I think is like a good, like, like an 8-9 days
Yeah.
thing. But this thing of 2 weeks plus is way too much. And also, I think it's time to just bring Master Looter back. That way, people don't have to depend on other people trading them gear. They can just, make their own runs with their own alts and things like that. Because I'm sure that hasn't been very fun either. I mean, it sounds fun, offering millions for people to come and join us, which they could still do technically, even if they do guild runs. Like, they could invite people who are geared just to help them clear, right? And then they can get more clears in. But having that worry of, oh yeah, so we invited like, this person, and hopefully this person loots that and this person loots that. Otherwise, if the wrong person loots the wrong item, they can't trade it. And yeah, it's just too much mental stress and pressure.
Yeah. And it's like, it's not fun to watch, and it also is like a very distorted view if you quit World of Warcraft and you're like, why is this top guild offering 10 million gold? And then it's like, at some point, diminishing return. Like, is it worth it to fly everyone out if after 2 weeks it becomes kind of miserable and you're stressed about people you left behind? Is it worth, I think the Liquid Treasurer was like, oh, we spent the equivalent of 93,000 on, pulling it up one sec.
Yeah, the tweet, right?
Yeah, like we spent 93,000 on the equivalent in
$93,000. Yeah.
And then it's like it went on so long they had to, leave the venue early. And it's just like, I wonder what the viewership was like too, because when 925 hit, all of our traffic like stopped being Race to World First, and it became patch 925.
Yeah, I mean, and it showed because the viewership was going down. It didn't start going up again until they were very close to a kill. Then it started going up again. So that's the part where the financial reason also becomes diminishing, especially for those who are at venues, because they have to keep paying for people's hotels and people's food and things like that. So at some point, it becomes not worth it anymore to be out there. Because we might see like 20,000 viewers or whatever, but when it goes from like 100,000 to like a 20,000 to like 100,000 again, then at some point that break off is too much of a drop, and that's when it's not worth anymore.
Yeah, especially when it's like the hardest boss and like it's taking the most effort and mental strain, and it has the least return. Like, that doesn't feel good. So
yeah, usually these kind of old raid tiers, I mean, these long raid tiers happen sometimes, right? But they happen quite rarely. Right. So hopefully it was just a one-off thing. I do still believe it became a big deal or like a big raid because this was Blizzard's attempt of 2 raids combined into one. I think some of these bosses were meant to be a 9-3 raid, and they wanted to still keep the coolness of these fights without nerfing them too much for each one. For each boss, and so I think it is a one-off. I don't think Blizzard wants it to be that long either, but I guess they were having fun with making a really difficult raid as a final like hit for Shadowlands.
Yeah, I could see that. Sorry, the cat is just out of control. But yeah, I mean, I do think it would be good if they, it's like we were saying about some other things. Like Blizzard might say, oh, we want people to approach content this way, but it's like, well, this is the reality you're stuck with. So it's like, if we know that Race to World First is a thing, and it's going to be an event that Blizzard doesn't maintain, but it's going to always be around, and they get promotional benefit out of it, even though they don't officially maintain it, maybe they should make some changes like you're saying with Master Loot, or just make changes if they know that people are going to play a certain way to when this race comes around.
Another interesting thing is that Blizzard is supporting this as well, because I noticed that the official Warcraft... they've been tweeting and retweeting pretty much all the different guilds, and they've also been gifting subs within the Twitch channels. So
I think that's been nice.
Yeah, I haven't seen that type of support in the past, so it's nice to see that this time at least.
Yeah. But, like, if they're kind of in this gray area where they're, like, acknowledging the race exists. But they're not like, hey, we'll make a tournament realm, or, like, we'll give prize money, or we'll, like standardize the opening day of the race, or
Yeah.
Twitch drops. It's not like if you watch the race you get a certain
Oh,
number of things.
imagine Twitch drops in time for something like that. That would be insane for
Yeah.
all the racing guilds. It would not be insane for all the other World of Warcraft streamers who traditionally get like half their viewers during the race.
Yeah.
But it would still be cool. It would still be cool. I don't think there's anything
Right.
wrong with supporting the world first raiders.
Yeah. But yeah, it's like we're sort of in this awkward limbo where like Blizzard is sort of supporting it, but like it's still kind of a mess. Like it's you can tell how they weren't expecting it to be that long, because they're like, oh, we have to delay MDI because the race is going on too long, and it's that same pool of people.
But that's good
So,
as well.
yeah,
the fact that it's acknowledged.
Oh,
in the
I
first...
think it's good they
Yeah.
decided that, but it's they didn't realize it was going to go on so long in the first place.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, it would be interesting to see the postmortems from a lot of guilds to see if they felt that the increased production, the increased money spent on tokens went well. How long people think an ideal race should last. If some people were like, I love this. If other people are like, no, I want this to be half the amount of time. But yeah, I think right now just everyone is exhausted. So
Yep. Absolutely. I see a chat question about their esports being on YouTube. So would Blizz really do Twitch drops? That's an interesting one as well, because that was a contract that probably only covers Shadowlands, where they moved all their esports to YouTube. I hope they change it for next time. I hope they don't accept a YouTube deal again, because I think it's better for World of Warcraft to be on Twitch for many reasons.
Yeah.
I think people who watch World of Warcraft content are usually on Twitch, not on YouTube.
yeah.
And yeah, they did have a contract at the moment where they were doing MDI and AWC on YouTube. Then they did some content on Twitch, right? Like, I think the Great Push was on Twitch.
I think it was. So I want to say the deal with YouTube came about with Overwatch League, and then it was like, oh, you have WoW esports as well. Oh, I guess that's part of it.
Yeah, then they just pushed it in.
Yeah.
So yeah, in that case, yeah, I don't think it's gonna happen anymore. Because Overwatch is also
my
going
guess
through
is that
troubles.
like new things could if there was like a if the contract was like existing programs must go to YouTube, that could explain how the newer classic things stayed on Twitch.
Yeah, that's true.
So maybe they're like, oh, look at this new fancy Race to World First thing. Like, it's not part of the YouTube contract. It can go wherever.
Yeah.
Also,
I do think they prefer on Twitch as well. It's just that they accepted a contract, so that's why it was on YouTube.
Yeah. I mean, I don't even think the WoW people were super aware of it. I think this was like 100%
Oh, like a higher
thing.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And then
actually.
it was like, yeah. Based on how it seems that like people didn't even know about the Microsoft deal until they read the news.
Yeah.
What I thought, they are adding a title in 925 where you get the Fearless Spectator if you watch the WoW esports finals.
Oh.
Which is interesting because that is on YouTube.
Okay.
I think it is. But yeah, maybe they'll do more of that stuff in the future. Who knows?
Yeah. When the YouTube contract is over, please do that on Twitch.
Yeah. But yeah, it definitely seems like people try to go all out with production quality for the raid, which I think is commendable, but it's just too bad that like it went on so long and it made like a lot of groups have to kind of give up early with jobs, obligations.
Of course.
Like we were just saying, it was cool how more guilds were like getting signed at the start, but now it's like, well, if they have to spend that much money, then it's going to be daunting for new guilds to join the space, and if some established guilds had to
spend this much,
sort of stop early or leave the hotels, it's like, well, that doesn't feel good for this esports space, the stability of it. So but yeah, hopefully lessons learned for 10.0, everyone working on the Race to World First, like all the participants, the casters, the production, and did a really good job on all the streams. So yeah,
it's awesome. It's nice that it's over now, so all the raiders can take a
Get
breather.
ready for MDI.
Yeah, true. Get ready for MDI now.
Yeah.
Oh. I think we had
but
one
yeah.
more 925 thing. The gooey slime saber, if you
Oh,
wanted
yeah.
to mention that.
Yeah, so there were those 5 mounts that people could vote on for the free mount, and we got the Wandering Ancient. And one that I voted on was the Gooey Slime Saber, which did not win.
Yeah.
But there's like an encrypted icon and slimy texture in patch 925, which could imply it is coming through some interesting quest line in the future. And it could be promising because we saw the Mage Tower mount, the Spellbook. That was
Exactly.
one of the other mounts that didn't win. So
And that was the one I voted for, so I'm glad that one was added.
yeah, so I think it's cool that if Blizzard goes this route, instead of just, recoloring something as a reward, that they're taking these very innovative Shadowlands concept mounts and bringing them into the game in different ways. So, fingers crossed, we get the cool slime cat. Brightpaw would like that. Maybe that's why Luna came back. She wanted to be like, I want the slime cat.
That
Yeah.
was it. That was it, yeah.
Yeah.
She's
So-
sitting here in front of me now, so it's very nice to have
Aw.
her.
Yeah.
But yeah, I
But
think that actually
yeah.
covers everything
Yeah.
that
so
we wanted
next
to
week,
talk about.
we will discuss the book in more detail. We'll have a bunch of articles up by then. And we can maybe we'll have another 925 build at this point, or more expansion hints. But yeah, either way, we will definitely have a lot of Sylvanas novel to talk about, since I got an advanced copy and read it, and I'm sure people will be discussing it over the next week.
Yeah, I think that sounds like a good plan. We'll see you guys
Yeah.
next week for that. Before we hop off, let me quickly shout out the
yeah.
resubs during the stream. We have Lincoln with the 51 months resub. That's a really long time. Thank you so much.
Wow, thank you.
Yep. Taylor with the 22 months. Noma with the 20 months. Kolnaris with the 11 months. And if Luna will allow me to see, Makan with the 31 month resub. Thank you guys so much for supporting the Wowhead channel.
Yeah, we really appreciate it.
Yeah. And we'll be back again next week. So stay tuned.
With more Sylvanas talk.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. Stay tuned for next week's show to discuss whatever happens between now and then in terms of news, and us covering the book as well.
Yeah. Big hugs to Luna, and we
Yeah.
will see you next week.
Indeed. Bye, everyone.
Yep.
Take care and see you all
Bye.
next week. If I can see the button. Thanks, Luna. There we go. Bye.
Bye.